So it is currently Wednesday morning. February 4th. The trade deadline is tomorrow at 3 p.m. So we have just over 24 hours to go until we get to the trade deadline. But over the past 24 hours, we saw a lot of big-time trades happen and a couple players get moved, changing the future of a couple franchises. So I would like to talk about what teams I think improved, good trades, bad trades, yada, yada. So, first and foremost, I do want to revisit this Utah Jazz trade for Jaren Jackson Jr. This was by far the most surprising trade of all of them yesterday. I don't know if anyone saw Triple J getting traded before Ja Morant, with the news being all things Ja Morant getting moved and all that. Jaren Jackson Jr. clearly was on the trade market. This now accelerates the Memphis Grizzlies rebuild and shows that they're kind of breaking up their core that won them the second seed a couple of years ago. Obviously, Dylan Brooks left. Then they traded Desmond Bane to the Orlando Magic for 4 first-round picks. And now we just saw them trade Jaren Jackson Jr. to the Utah Jazz for 3 first-round picks. This allows the Memphis Grizzlies to now have 13 first-round picks over the next 7 years, tying the Brooklyn Nets and the Oklahoma City Thunder for the most first-round picks. And I really don't think they're done. If I look at this Memphis Grizzlies team, I do not think they are done making moves yet. I really think that Ja Morant is not going to be on the team. It might not happen at this trade deadline in case a team isn't willing to give up big assets. For example, some teams might be looking at Ja Morant similarly to how the Atlanta Hawks viewed Trae Young. Now, obviously, they only got back CJ McCollum and Corey Kispert in the Trae Young trade. I think that the trade offers would be similar to that for Ja Morant with maybe a pick or two involved, but I think that his value would be better in the offseason. So it would not surprise me to see the Grizzlies run out a starting lineup very similar of what you're looking at right now of Ty Jerome, Cedric Howard, Jalen Wells, Gigi Jackson, Santi Aldama, trying to get Taylor Hendricks involved, who they just traded for, trying to get Walter Clayton Jr. involved, who they just traded for, waiting for Scottie Pippen Jr. to come back. But I look at this team, and they are in full rebuilding mode. Either way, if Ja Morant gets traded in the next 24 hours or if he gets traded in the offseason, either way, Ja Morant is clearly not a part of the long-term future here in Memphis. They had that core. They had a great starting lineup of Jaren, Dylan Brooks, Desmond Bane, Ja Morant when they were the 2 seed, and now that has been completely broken up to rebuild. Now, mind you, did I ever think the Grizzlies were going to be in championship contention with that group? No. I think they were at most about second-round exits with that team. Now, I think that's more of a Ja Morant problem than it is a actual Memphis Grizzlies problem. But they decided to blow it up. And I don't hate them for doing it. Use your assets when they still have value, right? Jaren Jackson Jr.'s value over the next 4 years is probably not going up. What I mean by that, when I look at Jaren's contract, he's going to be making, I think it was a $54 million player option in 2028. How many teams are going to be willing to pay that? The Utah Jazz were, and not only that, they were willing to give up 3 first-round picks for it. Now, I know a lot of people are saying, what are those first-round picks? Is it Utah Jazz unprotected picks? I believe the only first-round pick that they gave up that was Utah protected was, I think, 2027 first-round pick for Utah. I will confirm this, but they gave up a Lakers pick and a Phoenix pick. So if I go to the Jaren Jackson Jr. trade, I do want to just double-check the draft selections here. So, yes, Utah sent to Memphis included a 2027 Lakers first, the most favorable of the first-rounders the Jazz own in 2027. So Lakers 2027, most favorable of Utah, Cleveland, and Minnesota, likely still going to be Utah. And then a Phoenix Suns 2031 pick, which, funny enough, I was saying yesterday, I think that Phoenix Suns 2031 pick is going to have a lot more value than it looks to have on surface level right now. I really like Memphis taking that pick, especially for the future, because that's, 5 years away from now. Phoenix Suns, who knows what they're going to do, but I can tell you Phoenix does not have any real building blocks for the next 5 years in their young guys, like Colin Gillespie, maybe, obviously Devin Booker, but who knows if D-Book will still be there in 5 years. So bringing on that Suns 2031 pick, I really like that, along with a couple other draft picks I do like with a trade for Memphis specifically. And as for Utah, I think the on-court fit is pretty unique. It moves Larry Markkinen back to the small forward position. Now, mind you, he's probably the tallest small forward in the NBA, 7'1", He is an off-ball player, though. He's good without the ball. He's a solid enough rebounder. He's good enough that he can play the 3 or the 4. Jaren's very versatile, too. He's very, 4/5. He's not that great of a rebounder. That's definitely the biggest knock on Jaren Jackson Jr. But clearly, this Utah Jazz team is building towards next season. The emergence of Keontae George definitely accelerated what they believed this rebuild was going to be. So Jaren Jackson Jr. kind of fits that power forward defensive-minded guy that they want alongside Larry Markkinen and Keontae George. Now, mind you, don't forget, they also have Walker Kessler, who got injured 6 games into the season this year and has not played and is not going to play the rest of the year. So Walker Kessler is a name I definitely look at to fit alongside Triple J, kind of like that Zach Edey fit that Memphis was going for when they drafted Edey. I kind of view Walker Kessler very similarly to that. Now, Kessler does have to stay healthy, and I also would not put it past Danny Ainge to trade a couple of those other guys to, if Walker Kessler has a big market for Indiana or Boston or something, I would not be surprised to see Kessler moved. But for the on-court fit, I really like it. I think Jaren Jackson Jr. is a very smart player. He's a solid shooter. He's a 3-level scorer. He's a very versatile defender, very similar to Bam Adebayo in terms of defensive impact. And I think that's kind of what Utah was looking for in the next step of their rebuilds. Who's going to be their defensive-minded guy? And the good thing is they don't even have to really worry about extending him or, paying him necessarily because he's already under contract. You know the contract you're trading for. You're bringing him on for the next 4 years of his contract. I like it. You're getting a building block for the future, and they clearly believe that Jaren Jackson Jr. has another step to take. And I trust Danny Ainge. He's never really made bad moves over the course of his GM career. So I really like Jaren Jackson Jr. in Utah. I'm excited to see how this trade looks in about 2 years when that Lakers pick and that Jazz pick in 2027 are shown. I wonder what the draft picks lead to. But specifically, I think that the biggest thing that will come from this is whatever that 2031 Phoenix draft pick is. I do like that. And I also like the Grizzlies taking a guy like Walter Clayton Jr. I'm happy to see Hendricks get moved. Hendricks was the 9th overall pick who really was just a bust. He never turned out to be good for them. He's been dealing with a lot of injuries in and out of the G League. So to see him get traded to a rebuilding team, I like that. When you're bored, they have some spots open. Hey, I appreciate that, RG Pie. I really appreciate that. That's sweet of you, man. Thank you. Last round of purchase, the packing was interesting. Oh, yeah. There we go, Kane. Look at that. Let's go, Sam Darnold. You know who I'm rooting for this weekend. But yes, the biggest trade that happened, I definitely wanted to talk a little bit more in depth about that and the fit in Utah for Jaren and what the future looks like for Memphis. Don't be surprised if Ja Morant is traded in the next couple of days. And if he's not, it means that he probably will be traded in the offseason. It's just going to be interesting to see what young players Memphis decides to build around in the upcoming, because when I look at the starting lineup, they really truly believe in Cedric Coward, who they drafted in the lottery this year. I love Cedric Coward. I think he's a great player, so building around him doesn't surprise me. Jalen Wells was almost Rookie of the Year last year. G.G. Jackson, for being, I think he was a late second-round pick, has kind of been very, very solid for them. And then Santi Aldama, I always liked him, 30th overall pick. They signed Ty Jerome to a 3-year deal. You see why the past couple of days with Ja Morant out, Ty Jerome has stepped up. Memphis is building something. It's going to take a long time now. They're restarting that. They're restarting it. Oh, my God. Imagine Ja Morant in Boston. That would be the funniest thing of all time. I would buy him a Ja Morant Celtics jersey. I can't even lie. But that is the first trade I had to bring up. Jaren Jackson Jr. going to Utah. Right after that, though, we did get the notification about the Chicago Bulls 3-team trade. We weren't really able to understand a lot of it yesterday, but now we do have the full details of the trade. Mike Conley and Jaden Ivey going to the Chicago Bulls. Kevin Huerter, Dario Saric, and a first-round pick swap from the Minnesota Timberwolves going to the Pistons. So Dario Saric, by the way, who was just traded to the Chicago Bulls. Mind you, Saric was traded to the Bulls in this trade right here, which was just added in for them to get 2 second-round picks to take on his contract. They then flipped that contract to get Jaden Ivey. I love this trade if I'm Chicago. Now, mind you, I know Chicago, if I look at their depth chart now, you could sit there and make the argument, why do you have so many guards on your team? And I really can't tell you why they do. Josh Giddey, Trey Jones, Kobe White. Those guys are already, and Ayo Dosunmu. Those 4 guys are already there. Now we are adding Anthony Simons. Now we're adding Jaden Ivey. Now we're adding Mike Conley to that rotation of guards. I very, very much expect soon Anthony Simons or Kobe White to be traded. I don't think Simons is going to be a part of the Chicago Bulls' long-term future. Kobe White, I originally thought Kobe White was going to be included in the Minnesota Timberwolves part of the trade, going and being their starting point guard. I don't really know what the market looks like for Kobe White right now. I think it's very interesting to see them bring in Anthony Simons, bring in Jaden Ivey. Now, mind you, this is very similar to what the Bulls did with Josh Giddey, right? They traded a win-now player in Alex Caruso to the Thunder and bringing in a guy that just didn't fit what Oklahoma City was building in Josh Giddey. Well, 1 year removed from that trade, Josh Giddey's averaging 18, 9, and 9 for the Chicago Bulls, and Alex Caruso is like buried as the 7th or 8th man in OKC. Was it a good trade for both teams? Yes. The Thunder won a championship. The Bulls got their guy. I love them doing the exact same thing with a couple of these guys, right? Anthony Simons. A couple of years ago, we were talking about Anthony Simons as very similar basketball player to what Damian Lillard was producing when Dame went down and Anthony came in as the backup. Taking a shot on a guy like Anthony, I love it. Bring these guys back in, try and get their value up, and keep swapping them for draft picks. That's the only way the Bulls are going to get back into any sort of contention because they're not good at drafting. No way to put it. They're not a good drafting team. From Patrick Williams to Dalen Terry to, I mean, that's the only guys really left on this team that they drafted. Kobe White and Modest Buzelis are building blocks, right? But now Kobe White might get traded, so who knows with that. This is not really a great drafting team. So when you see talent that is drafted early and doesn't work out, giving them a chance to come to the Bulls, right, who's probably going to be mediocre either way, I like it. I like the moves for the Bulls. Do I love the Chicago Bulls also having Mike Conley? Definitely not. I hope Mike Conley just gets bought out so he can go to some contending team. But I do like the trade for the Bulls just to bring in a guy that they trust in Jaden Ivey, and they want to kind of build around a little bit with, you know, Kevin Huerter being the main guy that leaves in a first-round pick, going to Detroit. Love Detroit taking on draft capital for Jaden Ivey, who they clearly did not believe in to have a big impact on the Pistons moving forward. And then the Timberwolves, by the way, the whole reason the Timberwolves did this trade, they traded Mike Conley just to basically get back cash considerations. They're looking to open up money and spots to bring Giannis in. Whether or not Minnesota is going to be the team that's able to do it, who knows? But the main reason they moved on from Mike Conley and traded a first-round pick to get rid of that contract was because they want to get Giannis Antetokounmpo. The next trade, keeping the trend on the Chicago Bulls. Finally, the Bulls are making moves, right? It's funny that, you know, the Kings have all the Bulls players. Now the Kings haven't made a move, and here we are with the Chicago Bulls. Bulls traded Vucevic in a second for Anthony Simons in a second. Pretty one-for-one even trade here. Boston Celtics get their starting center of the near future because, as you remember, Nemez Queta and Luka Garza have been running their main center play this season. So bringing in Nikola Vucevic, very solid player. He's averaging 17 points, 9 rebounds, 4 assists a game. Oh yeah, Kane, we're going to get to that in a second. He's a good shooter, right? He's over the past 2 years, he's averaged around 39% from 3 on 4.5 attempts per game. He's a very, very solid rebounder. He's been a 10-plus rebounding guy for almost a decade, over a decade in the NBA. The biggest thing that I think about with this is it feels very Porzingis-esque without the defense. And I know the Celtics are a good defensive team, but I keep worrying about, you know, if they have to see a healthy 76ers team in the playoffs, if Evan Mobley's healthy, right? Is this Celtics team going to have the big man, you know, strength to defend other Eastern Conference big men? Specifically, if I go look at the standings, right? Jalen Duren and Detroit. Karl-Anthony Towns and Mitchell Robinson. I could see them dominating the glass against the Celtics. Toronto Raptors don't really have that center, but Evan Mobley, Joel Embiid, Bam Adebayo, Paolo Banchero's a big. I look at this Eastern Conference and I say, is Vucevic going to be the answer when, you know, when you're playing the best, right? Because the Celtics do have NBA Finals aspirations. Even at this point in the season with no Jason Tatum, they do have championship aspirations. Is Vucevic going to be able to match up if they make the NBA Finals against a Wemby, against a Jokic, against an Oklahoma City Thunder? Time will tell, but is it an upgrade over Nemez Queta? 100%. And you're giving up a guy that technically was not, what up at ETA? How you doing? Good morning. Technically has not started a game for you. 14-point per game scorer off the bench. 14, 2-2 for your starting center. I do believe that that was a good trade on paper for Boston. But the one thing I will say, Vucevic is definitely going to start. Yeah, I don't know if his value is going up because he might not get as many offensive touches, but he'll definitely get the rebounding stats to keep him very, very fantasy relevant. The only thing that does worry me, though, when I look at this Celtics team, Vucevic will be inserted in the starting center, so it makes me feel more comfortable about their center rotation with Nemez to go into the bench, who's been a very, very solid rebounder this year, and honestly a solid defender. But it just worries me. Their backup ball handlers now over in Boston are mixed with, Hugo Gonzalez, Baylor Shireman, and Sam Hauser are their main ball handlers off the bench. Now, mind you, Joe Mazzulla is a very smart coach, so he's probably going to run a lot of lineups where Derek White stays in, Peyton Pritchard comes out and goes in when Derek White's out, Jaylen Brown's the primary ball handler. I'm sure they're going to be able to figure it out come in the long term, especially if Tatum comes back, because then this whole team looks a whole lot different with Tatum in it. But I do think about that secondary ball handler. They drafted Hugo. They drafted Shireman. These are guys they want to build around, but 4 point per game, 3.5 point per game guys. Are those the guys that you're going to want to rely on late in the playoffs? I don't know, especially off the bench when bench units are really, really important come playoff time. I don't love it necessarily just because Boston still, I feel like, gave up so much. If you remember, they traded Drew Holiday. They basically, if you remember, traded Drew Holiday for Anthony Simons. So they basically traded Drew Holiday for Vucevic. I think I'd rather have Drew Holiday if I'm the Celtics, but that's just me. And lastly, the trade we have to talk about. Darius Garland is a Los Angeles Clipper along with a second-round pick, and James Harden gets his way and goes to the Cleveland Cavaliers. Weird trade. First and foremost, when I first saw the news that James Harden had come out and publicly requested a trade, which, mind you, happened when the Clippers were playing in a game that Harden was missing due to personal reasons, just wasn't showing up, my guess is, I was surprised. I thought Harden was going to be a Clipper for the rest of his career, at least. I mean, but who would have thought, right? Harden says one thing about staying somewhere for the rest of his career and ends up elsewhere. Now, as for both teams, it's a very weird trade because I don't know how much it really helps them this year. For example, Cleveland. The biggest thing with Cleveland is that, honestly, James Harden, he is on the court when he wants to be. He has played a lot of basketball games over the past couple of years. If I look at his game stats, as a member of the Clippers, he's played 72 games, 79 games, and this year, out of the 49 games the Clippers have played, James Harden's played in 44 of them, with him missing the last 2 probably because of this trade happening. So in terms of offensive durability, you're getting that in Cleveland. You're getting a guard that's probably going to be able to be on the court for the rest of the time next to Donovan Mitchell. And it also is technically definitely more of a win-now play. The biggest thing with Cleveland was that they were saying, come 2027 offseason, Donovan Mitchell is an unrestricted free agent. Now, Donovan Mitchell originally didn't even want to be in Cleveland. The rumors were he wanted to be a Knick. He then gets sent to Cleveland. They get a little bit of playoff success. He signs an extension. Well, now that extension's about to be up, and they tried that Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell backcourt. I don't think it necessarily didn't work. Darius Garland has been a 2-time All-Star next to Donovan Mitchell. So to say it didn't work, I think, is the wrong way to put it. That kind of guard combo is just not going to work in today's day and age. Darius Garland is 6'1". Donovan Mitchell is maybe 6'3". They're both small guards. Even with the defensive interior that you have in Evan Mobley and Jared Allen, it's just not a successful way to build your team. Now, Darius Garland has had injury problems. This is a big part of why I think they were willing to move on from him. This is not the first year that Darius Garland has just dealt with little ankle nibs and knee problems throughout the course of the season. It happened in 2023 where he missed a big stretch of the playoffs. He missed the playoffs in, I think, at least 2 or 3 years since he's been a member of the Cleveland Cavaliers. But with that being said, if you are going to have to trade James Harden, Clippers, I love this trade. You're basically bringing in a 26-year-old point guard for the same price of your 35-year-old guy who clearly didn't even want to be there. Darius Garland's going to be with the Clippers. He is a starting point guard there. It feels very similar to almost like Chris Paul going over to the Clippers. Obviously, Darius Garland is nowhere near where Chris Paul is offensively or anything like that. But he's only 26 years old. And for a Clippers team that really has had no youthful, exciting players that they feel good about for the future, they traded for John Collins. They traded Norman Powell. Well, now Norman Powell's an all-star in the Eastern Conference, so that trade looks terrible, right? The Kawhi Leonard and James Harden and Paul George phase never really worked out. Zubac becomes an all-NBA talent in here. Still, he's not doing it. When you look at this bench, their only really young guy you feel good about on this whole bench is Jordan Miller. And at that point, I mean, you're telling me you feel good about a guy that's averaging 9, 3, and 1. I mean, he is a couple year in, but Jordan Miller is really the only young guy there. If you are going to admit to yourself as a Clippers team that you are not going to compete this year, right, with James Harden and Kawhi Leonard, trading James Harden away and just bringing in a 26-year-old point guard who's been a multiple-time All-Star, you know his skill set would work alongside John Collins and Zubac because it's not that far off of James Harden. It's different visibly, but statistically, it's really not that different. Darius Garland is, in my opinion, a better off-ball player than James Harden as well. Now, is he a better player at almost everything on the court than James Harden? No. Cleveland definitely upgraded this trade. Let's not get it twisted and try and disrespect James Harden around here. There's a reason Cleveland made this trade, and it's because James Harden is averaging 25 and 8. He's third in the NBA in assists. He's 16th in the NBA in scoring. We see a lot of the time, too, by the way. Harden can go back to his Houston days. He can hit you with the, isolation moves, step back threes. He can score the ball. We don't have to question Harden scoring the ball. The question is Harden going to be able to be a part of a championship contending team as the starting point guard at today's day and age? That's the biggest question. Because this trade does not fix Cleveland's backcourt defensive liabilities, right? It doesn't at all. Now, mind you, Cleveland also did trade earlier in the week. They made this trade right here, trading DeAndre Hunter away and bringing in Keon Ellis and Dennis Schroeder. I don't love Dennis Schroeder being the backup point guard to Donovan Mitchell and James Harden. It just feels kind of worthless to have a guy who I don't think is a great off-ball player and he's a primary ball handler, pick-and-roll point guard. Do I love seeing that behind James Harden? Not necessarily. But right here, Keon Ellis is going to be the point of attack defender on the perimeter for them. I wouldn't be surprised to see Keon Ellis starting for this Cleveland Cavaliers team in the upcoming weeks at that small forward position. I know they got Dean Wade. Jalen Tyson has been so good for them off the bench or starting. He's averaging 14 points as a second-year guy. Sam Merrill's been very solid. Naquan Tomlin in his limited minutes has been okay. But I really think that addition of Keon Ellis is going to be the defensive guy that they rely on come playoff time. But the biggest question here is, where does Cleveland go, right? You make the trade for James Harden, which clearly shows you're trying to win the championship now. When you trade a 26-year-old for a 36-year-old who basically is just an upgrade, you're clearly showing your organization you're trying to win now. Does this mean that Cleveland is going... Look at this. Wendy, James Harden trade is all about the money. Does this mean that Cleveland feels like LeBron James is going to sign there next year? Because when you look at this depth chart, right? James Harden at the 1, Donovan Mitchell at the 2, Evan Mobley at the 4, Jared Allen at the 5. When I've been talking about this Cavs team all year long, I've been saying they have to make a decision on either Darius Garland or Jared Allen. I think Evan Mobley is better as a center. I think Donovan Mitchell is better as your primary ball handler. Well, they traded Darius Garland for a more primary dominant ball handler, and they didn't trade Jared Allen. So am I going to sit here and tell you guys that I think that this trade puts Cleveland over the top this year at all? By no means do I think it does, because we know James Harden's track record, specifically late in the playoffs too. He's always been an underperformer in moments that he's supposed to be at the top of his game. It's just the truth. When you look at this team, they have a glaring position in their starting lineup in that small forward position that they don't have anyone for. Jalen Tyson was drafted to basically be a backup shooting guard / point guard. Keon Ellis is 6'4". Dean Wade is really not a starting small forward in the NBA. This, I think, is a trade to try and lure LeBron James back for his 24th season on, say, a minimum deal and have a starting lineup of this with LeBron and then make a true last championship push in Cleveland next year. But Brian Windhorst is saying this trade is all about the money. There is a lot of financial implications with this as well. James Harden apparently wanted an extension, a 2-year extension through 2028 after this season with the Clippers. The Clippers said no. Do you blame the Clippers at all? I don't at all. Clippers want financial flexibility for the 2027 offseason as they're looking to restart their entire team. They're realizing the Kawhi Leonard time didn't work. They're finally coming to the realization of all that. They want financial freedom in the offseason, not this coming offseason, but 1 year from now. So when I look at this Clippers team, I think it's going to look very, very different in about 2 to 3 years from now. I don't see Kawhi sticking around, especially with James Harden getting traded. Zubac, I think, is going to be a name that's so heavily on the trade market that eventually the value is just going to be too good. I think a team like, wait for Zubac to get traded to the Indiana Pacers next year when Halliburton's healthy and they need a starting center. I could just see something like that happening. Clippers are trying to make up for the trades that they've made in recent history to, become an older win-now team. Trading a 36-year-old for a 26-year-old. They got the second-round pick. I always think that's funny, by the way, to see, the 26-year-old had to have the draft pick attached to him to get the 36-year-old. I think that, who knows how trade value and those conversations work. But James Harden is officially a member of the Cleveland Cavaliers, and I'm not going to sit here and say he's going to end his career there because he could probably be on 4 separate teams in the next 2 years, and I would not be surprised at all. But this will now be his his fourth team since 2020. Fourth team since 2020 between Brooklyn, Philly, the Clippers, and now the Cavaliers. Kind of sad for a guy like Harden to kind of do this all, not only ring chase, but not find any success doing it. James Harden's one of my favorite players all time, and that's coming from a Warriors fan. I love James Harden. I loved watching him in Houston. He always gave the Warriors incredible runs in those playoff games. If they don't miss 27 straight three-pointers, who knows how this, the NBA looks nowadays. Harden could still be with the Rockets. But as for Cleveland, they're trying to go in a win-now direction. Do I think that this fixed their problems? Absolutely not. I did see rumors that the Cavs are trying to put together a package to, I did see the Cavaliers were trying to put together an Evan Mobley package to bring Giannis in. If that happens, then they have Harden, Mitchell, and Giannis. We're having an entire new conversation just around Cleveland. But as of right now, James Harden for Darius Garland. I like it for the Clippers because you get younger. As for the Cavaliers, I don't think this fixes any of your problems. If anything, it might make some of your problems a little bit more worse in the long run, especially if they give him that 2-year, $80 million contract. Then I look at Cleveland and I'm like, oh man, I don't love it. But at the same time, you cannot deny James Harden's on-court talent. 25 points per game. He's 16th in the league. 8 assists per game. He's still a solid three-point shooter. He's such a great shot creator. He sees the floor like no one else does. I think he will make this Cavs team in the immediate better. That is always a thing with James Harden, is he goes to a team, and that first 2 weeks he's on a team, that team is levels better than they were previously. And then they go through their, 2-month, 3-month drought, and then James Harden underperforms in the playoffs, and it feels like that cycle is just bound to happen again in Cleveland. But that is the rundown of all the team trades. I guess Vic Krejci was traded to the Portland Trailblazers for Duop Reith and 2 future second-round picks. Now, the only thing that is interesting with this trade, in my opinion, Vic Krejci is under the same management that Giannis is. Don't want to say anything too crazy, but Portland Trailblazers getting Vic Krejci. If Giannis doesn't get traded by Thursday, I keep telling y'all the Portland Trailblazers are a team to watch for Giannis in the offseason. Vic Krejci under the same exact agency management as Giannis. Thought that was interesting. And then shout out Chicago. I think Chicago is a winner of these trade deadlines. Now, I know that they're only bringing in younger guards, and you keep looking at their guard rotation. You're like, yo, Chicago, you got so many guys. You got like 7 guards that you should be giving minutes to. I hope Kobe White gets traded or Ayo Dosunmu gets traded. Keep doing this gradual flipping, bringing assets in and flipping them, Chicago. It's a great way to accelerate your rebuild. And as a fantasy guy, I'm very excited to see Jalen Smith starting. I love Jalen Smith. I loved him when he was drafted to Phoenix. I was surprised to see Phoenix get rid of him as fast as they did. Thought he was pretty solid as a backup center in Indiana. Then when he came over to Chicago, he played pretty bad last year, but has had a resurgence here this year. Excited to watch former 10th overall pick Jalen Smith run starting center minutes. But don't be surprised if a team like Chicago isn't done making moves, or there's going to be a lot of trades that happen in the next couple of days. We got to see Sacramento start making deals. We got to see Dallas start making some trades. We got to see the Pelicans start making some trades. I would not be surprised to see a couple of these guys completely blow it up and make some more rebuilding trades. Memphis, though, 13 first-round picks over the next 7 years, most in the NBA, along with OKC and Brooklyn. So Memphis going towards a full rebuild, while other teams like Utah are going in win-now mode. Yeah, interesting stuff. Cleveland, by the way, is 5th seed right now. They are tied with Toronto for the 4 seed. I expect Cleveland to sit around this range. If they pass Boston, that wouldn't surprise me. If they pass New York, that probably would surprise me, unless New York makes a big-time trade. But James Harden being a win-now player, going to Cleveland, you got to pay him $80 million to stick around. So I guess that's what the plan is over there in Cleveland. Pay James Harden $80 million. But that is my rundown of all the trades that happened yesterday. I'm definitely expecting, while we're on stream today, many more to happen.